The Rambler Network.
Welcome to the Pacific Coast, where the vast and serene holds more secrets than you could ever imagine. From ghost ships adrift in the fog to unsolved disappearances, we explore the mysteries that lurk along the shore. Join us as we unravel the enigmas that are oddly Pacific. On October 26, 2024, I stood outside a theater on Geary Street in San Francisco. There was something I had been thinking about for a while, but hadn't heard anyone else talk about. There was a little-known yet important story that took place at this theater. In fact, where I stood, in front of the theater. This was the spot where Paul Stine picked up his last writer. They say monsters don't exist, but one of the most chilling figures to ever haunt the Pacific Coast didn't crawl from folklore or myth, but drove calmly through the streets of Northern California. He didn't hide under your bed. He waited in shadows, behind headlights, and beneath the stars. And he spoke, not in whispers, but in bold, cryptic taunts, as if daring the world to catch him. This is not a ghost story. This is the story of a man who hunted real people, young lovers, college students, and cab drivers, and then mailed pieces of his madness to the world. Letters soaked in arrogance, puzzles that promised truth but delivered only more questions. A killer whose identity has remained just out of reach for over half a century. Tonight, we begin our journey with one of the darkest legends ever etched into the Pacific Coast collective memory. This is the Zodiac. Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were high school sweethearts. Betty Lou, age 16, was a bright and popular student at Hogan High School in Vallejo, California. Known for her artistic talents and active involvement in school activities, she was well liked by her peers and had dreams of pursuing a career in arts. David Faraday, age 17, was a dedicated and hardworking student at Vallejo High School. He was known for his passion for science and his aspirations of becoming an engineer. On the night of December 20th, 1968, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday set out on their first official date. The young couple drove to a secluded spot on Lake Herman Road, a popular area for local teens. Shortly after 11 p.m., their innocent evening took a horrific turn. An unknown assailant approached their car and, after a brief confrontation, shot David in the head at point-blank range as he tried to exit the vehicle. Betty Lou managed to escape from the car, but the attacker shot her 5 times in the back as she fled. Her body was found approximately 28 feet from the car. The killer vanished into the night, leaving behind a scene of violence and a community forever changed. This tragic event marked the beginning of the Zodiac Killer's notorious series of murders that would haunt Northern California for years to come. Darlene Farron, age 22, was described as vibrant and outgoing. She worked as a waitress at Terry's restaurant in Vallejo. Known for her friendly personality and warm smile, she was well liked by both her coworkers and customers. Darlene had a magnetic charm that drew people to her, and she was known to have many friends. Michael Maggio, age 19, was soft-spoken and kind-hearted and worked various jobs around Vallejo. Though more reserved than Darlene, he was loyal and caring, with close-knit friendships and a quiet determination about him. The two were friends who enjoyed each other's company, and their lives were intertwined by the fateful night of July 4th, 1969. Darlene and Michael drove to Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, seeking a quiet spot to talk and enjoy each other's company. As they sat in Darlene's car, an unknown vehicle pulled up beside them before quickly driving away, only to return moments later. The driver exited the vehicle and approached their car, shining a flashlight into their eyes, blinding them. Without warning, the assailant began firing a handgun, striking both Darlene and Michael multiple times. Despite his injuries, Michael managed to catch a glimpse of the shooter before the attacker left the scene. Darlene was shot several times and succumbed to her injuries shortly after the attack, while Michael, though gravely wounded, survived and was able to provide crucial details to the police. This brutal assault marked the Zodiac Killer's second confirmed attack. Shortly after the attack, the Vallejo Police Department received an anonymous phone call from someone claiming to have been the shooter and linking the two attacks. I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. The caller's voice was calm and confident, and he gave detailed information that only the killer would know. But this was just the beginning of his taunting. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror was marked not only by his brutal attacks, but also by his chilling correspondence with the media. On August 1st, 1969, the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner each received a letter from the killer. In these letters, he took credit for the murders of Betty Lou Jensen, David Faraday, and Darlene Ferrin, and the attack on Michael Maggio. Each letter contained 1/3 of a cryptogram, which the killer claimed would reveal his identity when solved. The letters were signed with a distinctive cross-circle symbol that would become his infamous trademark. The Zodiac demanded that the ciphers be published on the front page of the newspapers, threatening to kill again if his demands were not met. A week later, a high school teacher named Donald Harden and his wife Betty cracked the 408 symbol cipher, revealing the following disturbing message. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise and all I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. EBEORIETEMETHHPITI. However, the part where he claimed to reveal his identity was disappointingly indecipherable. Over the following months and years, he continued to send taunting letters, mocking the police, providing details of his crimes, and including more cryptograms, many of which remained unsolved for decades. These letters created widespread panic and ensured that the Zodiac Killer remained in the public eye, his identity and motives shrouded in mystery. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were college students at Pacific Union College in Inglewood, California. Brian, age 20, was a pre-law student with a keen intellect and a passion for justice, known for his friendly and easygoing nature. Cecilia, age 22, was talented and studying music. She had a gentle spirit and was beloved for her kind heart and artistic talents. The two shared a close friendship that had blossomed into a romantic relationship, and they enjoyed spending time together, exploring the picturesque landscapes of Northern California. On September 27, 1969, they decided to spend a relaxing afternoon picnicking at Lake Berryessa in Napa County. That afternoon, Brian and Cecilia were enjoying a peaceful picnic by the scenic lake. As they relaxed on a blanket near the water's edge, their tranquil day took a terrifying turn. A man wearing an executioner's hood and a bib emblazoned with a cross-circle symbol approached them. He brandished a gun and claimed to be an escaped convict who needed money and a car to flee to Mexico. The attacker then produced pre-cut lengths of rope and ordered Brian and Cecilia to tie each other up before he bound them more securely. Without warning, he began brutally stabbing them with a long knife. Brian was stabbed 6 times in the back, while Cecilia was stabbed 10 times in the back and abdomen. After the assault, the attacker calmly walked back to Brian's car and drew the same cross-circle symbol on the car, along with the dates of his previous attacks. Despite their severe injuries, Brian survived the attack, but tragically, Cecilia succumbed to her wounds 2 days later. This horrific incident added another chilling chapter to the Zodiac Killer's spree, further spreading fear throughout Northern California. Paul Stein was a 29-year-old cab driver living in San Francisco, California. A native of Texas, Paul had moved to the Bay Area to pursue his studies and aspirations. He was a graduate student working towards his teaching credentials, with dreams of becoming an educator. Known for his intelligence and friendly demeanor, Paul was respected by his friends and colleagues. To support himself and his education, he took up driving a taxi, a job that allowed him to interact with a wide variety of people and navigate the vibrant streets of San Francisco. On the night of October 11th, 1969, Paul Stine was working his shift as a taxi driver. He picked up a passenger at the intersection of Mason and Geary Street, intending to take him to Presidio Heights, an upscale neighborhood. Upon reaching the destination at the intersection of Washington and Cherry Streets, the passenger suddenly pulled out a gun and shot Paul Stine in the head, killing him instantly. The killer then proceeded to take Paul's wallet and car keys and tore off a piece of his blood-stained shirt. He meticulously wiped down the cab to remove fingerprints before calmly walking away into the night. Eyewitnesses, including teenagers who observed the incident from a nearby house, called the police, providing a description of the suspect. Despite arriving at the scene within minutes, the police were unable to apprehend the killer. Days later, the Zodiac Killer claimed responsibility for the murder in a letter in the San Francisco Chronicle, which included a piece of Paul Stine's shirt as proof. This brazen killing in a populated area marked a disturbing escalation in the Zodiac's campaign of terror. On the night of March 22, 1970, Kathleen Johns, a young pregnant mother, was driving with her infant daughter along Highway 132 near Modesto, California, en route to visit her sick mother. As she drove, a car behind her began flashing its headlights and honking its horn, signaling for her to pull over. Concerned, Kathleen stopped on the side of the road, and the driver of the other vehicle approached her, claiming that her car's wheel was wobbling and offered to tighten the lug nuts. After supposedly fixing the problem, the man drove off, but within minutes, Kathleen's wheel came off entirely. The same man returned, offering to drive her to a service station. Feeling uneasy but desperate, Kathleen accepted the ride. However, instead of taking her to a service station, the man drove aimlessly for 2 hours, making threatening remarks and veiled references to harming her and her child. Seizing an opportunity, Kathleen managed to escape with her daughter by jumping from the car and hiding in a field until she was picked up by a passing motorist who took her to the police station. It was there that she saw a wanted poster for the Zodiac Killer and recognized her abductor as the man who had terrorized her that night. This harrowing incident added yet another layer to the Zodiac's terrifying legacy, highlighting his unpredictability and the ongoing threat he posed to the community. In the 70s, details about a suspected early Zodiac murder came to light. On October 30th, 1966, 18-year-old Sherry Jo Bates, a student at Riverside City College in Riverside, California, was brutally murdered near the campus library. After spending the evening studying, Sherry's car was found disabled with a distributor coil and condenser wires pulled out. She was later found in a nearby alley, having been viciously attacked with multiple stab wounds and her throat slashed. A month after her murder, the Riverside Press Enterprise received an anonymous letter detailing the crime, followed by another letter in 1967 sent to the Riverside Police and the newspaper, signed with the enigmatic Z symbol. These letters bore striking similarities to the Zodiac Killer's later communications, leading investigators to suspect that Sherry Jo Bates might have been an early victim of the infamous serial killer. Despite these connections, the link between Bates' murder and the Zodiac Killer remains officially unconfirmed, adding to the mystery and debate surrounding one of America's most notorious unsolved cases. Over the years, many suspects have been proposed. Arthur Lee Allen was the most prominent, but DNA evidence has since cast doubt on his involvement. Other suspects include Richard Bykowski, Lawrence Kane, and even Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Yet, no conclusive evidence has ever been found to definitively identify the Zodiac Killer. Robert Graysmith, a former political cartoonist for the San Francisco Chronicle, became deeply fascinated by the Zodiac Killer case while studying at the newspaper during the height of the killer's terror. His obsession with the case led him to spend years researching and compiling evidence, culminating in the publication of his book, Zodiac, in 1986. Graysmith's book provided a detailed account of the Zodiac crimes, cryptic letters, and the extensive police investigation, and offering his own theories about the killer's identity. Zodiac became a bestseller and significantly renewed public interest in the case. Over the decades, the Zodiac Killer has permeated pulp culture, inspiring numerous books, documentaries, movies, and TV shows. The most notable adaptation is David Fincher's 2007 film Zodiac, based on Grace Smith's book, which brought the chilling story to a new generation and further cemented the Zodiac Killer's status as one of America's most infamous and enigmatic serial killers. I stood outside the theater on Geary with one question. Why was Zodiac waiting for a cab here? Why this spot? Why this theater? It's known that he was a fan of movies. It was even speculated that he possibly worked at a theater. Yet I have never once heard anyone bring up this theater when talking about this story. It's just another afterthought and then quickly moved on from. I intend to go inside and ask for the manager, to ask if they know anything about the story, if they know anything that might help identify this serial killer that no one else has been able to identify. Perhaps they had an employee in the late 60s that made people uneasy, or a regular patron who everybody knew to stay away from. Either way, I felt there was answers inside this theater. But then a thought occurred to me. What if the manager was elderly and not only remembered this story, but was the Zodiac himself? Could I endure facing him myself? I knew the likelihood was very low, but the thought unnerved me to the point where I simply walked away without even going in. So, I'll merely leave this question for public speculation. Why was Zodiac picked up from this location? The Zodiac's crimes feel ancient now, black and white headlines from another era, but his presence still lingers, in cracked ciphers and dusty police files, in the minds of those who study the darkness. He was never caught, never named, and maybe that's the most terrifying part, because monsters don't need faces to live on, just stories. And out here, where the Pacific fog swallows sound and secrets alike, those stories still echo, remaining oddly Pacific. If you have any theories or thoughts on this or any other story I cover, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out on social media at Rambler Network on Instagram and X, or visit ramblerNetwork.com. Intro and outro music is Oceanus by Flat Sound Works from Pixabay.com.
The Rambler Network.